Today in the English-speaking world, we call this Maundy Tuesday, which means from the Latin mandatum, not Tuesday, but Thursday, the the Thursday of the commandment. The commandment is that Jesus commands his disciples to go and do likewise. He washes their feet today, his apostles, and he commands us to do the same. We don't really spend much time on that because today we celebrate the two gifts that Jesus gave us. One is the priesthood, and the other is the Mass, the Eucharist, the ability to change the body and the bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ. And then those who are able to do that are the priests, the ones who Jesus gives us this day as priests. So it's not really part of Lent. It's a celebration day. We sing the Gloria, we ring the bells, and we thank God for these two great gifts. One is his own living presence among us, and then giving that power to men to call down from heaven that great miracle of his body and blood. So I think this feast begins a long time ago in the first call of the apostles, when Jesus went to the boat of Simon Peter, and he works a miracle, and Simon's response is very strange. He said something that I often say to God: "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man." That's what Peter says to Jesus when he calls him. And when he sees who was really calling him, it dawns on him that this is God. It's not just some invitation to go fishing. And he realizes that he's a sinner and he's not worthy to be called. All those who are called to priesthood are sinful men. And to pretend otherwise is to be foolish and to abrogate to ourselves something that really isn't ours. We are not anything, but God is everything. And so when the priest at the altar finishes changing the bread and the wine into the body of Christ, he says something that is really strange. He says, "Mysterium fidei." Mysterium from the Greek meaning mystery or secret. In the Latin, it's sacramentum fidei, which means, again, a swearing of allegiance, or it's the translation of the Greek mysterium, which is a very strange word to translate. It's the oath a soldier swore to his emperor, to his God, for whom he would die. He swears unfailing, undying devotion to that emperor, to that God, for whom he will give his life as a soldier. And so that's what is proclaimed to us when we do this miracle. And I think the miracle, the mystery, the secret is not only that bread and wine is changed into the body and blood of Christ. I think that's obvious because we who live by faith and walk by faith realize that that's what happened. But another way that Jesus hides himself in that sacrament is that it's a man, and not only a man, but a sinful man, who is able to do that, to call God down from heaven and to make God come and become the body and blood of his people. The Lamb is called down to be sacrificed in the one eternal sacrifice, and the man can do that. And that's a mystery. It's a sacrament. It's something that is unexplainable. It's a secret that is only for the initiate, because it's just unbelievable that this can happen, that God puts himself into the power of a priest's voice to call him down, that a priest can hold him, can crack that host, can crush him, can stamp on him, can disfigure him, can abuse him, as the soldiers did on this very night when they arrested Jesus. It's just unbelievable that to both his enemies and his friends, he gives that same power of abusing him in his physical body. And to me, it's just unbelievable that he would humbled himself so to become obedient, not only to Joseph, a saint, not only to Mary, an all holy one, preserved from sin, but to be obedient to sinful men day in and day out, to be the slaves of slaves, to be able to be bossed around by we who cannot even boss ourselves around, who don't even know where we're going. You talk about faith of us in God. How about God's faith in us? As that novelist who wrote the story of Monte Cristo, when the prisoner, who was a priest, by the way, finishes digging the hole and loses his way, and who has lost faith in God and everything human. And the count says to him, you know, you may not believe in God, but God has never stopped believing in you. God believed in Peter. God believed in Judas. God believes in me. God believes in you. Isn't that a mystery? How that God would trust you, a sinner, to be his instrument, to carry Jesus into the world, to wash the feet of others, because where two or three are gathered in his name, so is he. And he commands us, all of us, not just priests, but all, to wash the feet of one another. How are we going to do that when we have to stay 6 feet apart? The great curse of this virus is to teach us what hell is all about. Not being close, not being able to receive affection, to kiss. Judas would never be able to kiss Christ. Christ would never be able to kiss Judas in this virus. He would have to put off his betrayal sign because he has to keep social distancing. Think about it. Not to be able to be near those we love and those who hate it. Love and hate are just different sides of the same coin. The opposite of love is not hatred, but indifference. And we can never say that God is indifferent to us. He really loves us, but we oftentimes are indifferent to him. We really hate God by being indifferent to him, by pretending he doesn't exist, pretending we don't really hear him when he calls to us in our conscience. We don't hear him when he sings to us in the birds, when we see him in the sunset, when we feel the love of a mother toward us, or the love of a friend toward us. We close our eyes to his loving touch, and we go to hell by social distancing, not being touched, not being loved, not being kissed, not being held, not being caressed. Jesus doesn't ever practice social distancing. He touches a leopard and then can no longer walk in the cities and towns, but has to take the leopard's place and avoid human beings. So much does he love us that for the leopards he practices social distancing. For us, he stays away from us if we don't want to be near him. What a sadness this day is that we will not come close to Christ to let him wash not only our feet, but most of all our hearts. Today is Maundy, Thursday. It's the day in which the commandment of God, do as I have done to you, do to others. May we wash the feet of those who are poor, broken, afflicted, the child abusers, the homeless, the drunks, the addicts, those whom we cannot see any good in, except that in them is hidden away, in the mysterium fidei, in the mystery of our faith, the living Jesus, who asks us, in loving them, to love him.